Everyone who's entering our Zoom Student Speaker Series panel. It means so much that you all have attended this evening or afternoon, depending on where you're located right now. So we will give you all a few seconds to get on and log into Zoom, but we are Study Hall College Consulting, and we're super excited to have you all here for our panel this evening. So on our agenda, we'll start with introducing our webinar hosts, and then we'll talk a little bit about Study Hall College Consulting, who we are, and our services. Then we will go into introducing our wonderful student panel. So we have a great student panel here tonight, where then they will go into the question and answer period, where you all can ask questions in the chat, and we had a form going around where students could ask questions before the panel started. So if you had any questions throughout, definitely use the chat function here on Zoom to ask your question, and then we will go into final remarks. And so, like we said, if you stay until the end of our panel, you will receive 10% off your next Study Hall College Consulting purchase. So definitely stick around until the end at the top of the hour and then fill out our form to receive your discount. So for introductions, hello everyone. My name is Rachel. I am a recent grad of UC Berkeley in the class of 2020, where I double majored in cognitive science and legal studies. I'm an out-of-state student to Berkeley, where I'm originally from Maryland. Post-grad, right now, I am currently working at a law firm in Washington, D.C. In college, I was super involved in residential life, where I was a resident assistant, also known as RA. So with that job, I got free housing and food. I was also a hiring and training coordinator for residential life. I was a campus ambassador, also known as tour guide, and I was involved in the student government at Berkeley, known as the ASUC.
All right, sweet. Hi, everyone. So I am Sarah. I will be the other host for this evening. I graduated from UC Berkeley in 2020, and I majored in architecture while I was at Berkeley within the College of Environmental Design, if you're familiar with the colleges at Berkeley. I also minored in Spanish language and literature while I was there, and I'm from Lafayette, California, so I actually didn't go far to college, still in the Bay Area. And currently, since I've graduated, I'm working both as an in-person teacher for middle school and high school students with really project-based learning, and I'm also working at M-Train, which does harassment and bias training for the workplace. And as for my college involvement, so while I was in college, I was an environmental design ambassador. So similar to being a campus ambassador for the entire school, I actually worked directly with my college to get people interested in design and make it kind of more accessible and more widespread to a lot of middle school and high school students. And I also was the virtual engagement coordinator for Berkeley. So I actually, after everyone went online, I started making tours for our ambassador program to reach out to students and so they could tour the campus online instead of in person. And then I also was on the club soccer team at Berkeley, and I was part of a design collective called Designa, where about 15 of my design friends and I got together and started designing, a bunch of different projects with our free time. And I also got to study abroad in the Czech Republic while I was in college, so that was an amazing experience as well. All right, so before we begin, we wanted to just give a little bit of an overview about our services at Study Hall College Consulting. We do a bunch of different things to kind of help you along the college application process for all of you high schoolers out there getting ready to go into college, or transfer students as well. So we do help you first and foremost with your college application essay review. And what that means is we can look over your Comlin application, kind of what answers you've given those prompts. We can look at supplemental essays as well, those kind of shorter ones, which are a little bit different. There's a different dynamic to how those are answered. And we also are, pretty good at the UC personal insight questions, given that we've kind of gone through that process with the UC application. So we will look at all those different kinds of essays that you do submit and help you get them kind of tuned up to submit for your application. And the way that we do those essay reviews is holistic yet detailed. So we really do want to do kind of a thorough analysis of your story, and how you're portraying yourself, and kind of help you portray the best of yourself. But we also will go over grammar, vocab, and also the tiny little things that actually make that possible. So we really want to kind of help you along, whether English is not your first language or it is. Everyone can kind of use a second set of eyes, especially if you might not have anyone around you here to kind of review your essay. And then we do give paragraph explanations of how to improve your essays after that, and give you detailed suggestions of what to do and how to make your essay a little bit better. All right. And then on top of that, we also do college and career coaching calls. And so these are really great opportunities to talk about things that might not be relevant to your essay specifically. But you totally can talk about your essay in these calls, but it's, virtual ways to communicate with our team, and ask questions. Or if you just need advice about, your high school experience, college experiences, college application experiences, tricks and tips, and things like that, we are more than happy to talk through all of that with you, and we can work together to kind of brainstorm ideas for your essays, or kind of big picture. If you don't know what program you might want to go into in college, you don't really know where your head's at in everything that's going on, we are totally there to support you. And also especially creating a college list, because there's a lot that goes into picking what college is right for you, or what programs you want to go into, or what really clicks for you. You want to find the place that really fits. So we are always happy to hop on a call with you and kind of talk through everything that you need. Sometimes that's just life advice, but we are totally here for all of that.
Awesome. So now we will introduce our wonderful panel for the event. Definitely, while our panelists are introducing themselves, definitely look at their activities that they did in high school or community college. What did they get involved in inside of school and outside of school? So maybe that can help spark some questions that you have for our panelists. So we will start it off with Nina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nina, and I'm currently a sophomore at UC Berkeley. I'm studying economics and nutritional sciences toxicology. I'm also actually minoring in chemistry. As listed on the slide, I'm a first generation student. I'm from the Bay Area, so I'm around Berkeley. I didn't go too far from home. And some things I'm involved on campus. So I previously worked as a campus ambassador, which, as Rachel mentioned earlier, is basically a tour guide. Right now, it's not listed there, but I'm also working as an administrative assistant for a business journal. So that's very cool. In addition to that, I'm on campus. I'm involved in a club known as Circle K, which is a service volunteer organization associated with Kiwanis, if you've heard of that. I'm also a Vietnamese department coordinator intern for the Volunteer Health Interpreters organization on campus. And I previously worked as a university health worker, and I'm also involved with Study Hall College Consulting. So in high school, I was a student faculty liaison. I basically worked with other students and the faculty on campus to ensure that our high school students were happy and enjoyed their classes. I served as the UNICEF vice president and president. I was also in varsity badminton. I was involved with an organization known as MESA, which stands for Mathematics, Science, Engineering Achievements. I did a lot of robotics and math competitions. I also played violin in the orchestra. So some internships I have right now. I am working as a content manager for a local restaurant, and then I also have the business journal as the administrative assistant. And then outside of school, in high school, I did Key Club. I served as a district governor and a lieutenant governor. And then I was also my city's council community council. My city's council. I was part of my city's council. Sorry. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Yadira. I go by she, her, hers. You can also call me Yadi. I'm also a UC Berkeley student. I'm actually a senior currently, so I will be graduating. That's the hopes for the semester. I'm a transfer student from Santa Ana Community College. My major is global studies with a focus on peace and conflict studies in Latin America. My hometown is Orange County. I'm currently located here but not exactly Santa Ana. I'm in Anaheim, and that's in Southern California. So I'm not by Berkeley. I miss the food. My college involvement is I'm currently the chief of staff for the ASUC Office of Transfer Representative. I'm the human resources and outreach for the Alternative Investment Society. I'm also an SPM mentor. I'm a Raices transfer intern, and I used to be president of the Unit 6 Residential Hall Association, which I worked with Rachel. It was amazing. I was part of the undergraduate academic senate, so I was a student representative, especially for transfer students, which also just claps on transfer students. I know everyone's awesome. I just love transfers. And also I lobbied. I went to Congress with the ASUC, and I lobbied in like the House of Representatives and like Congress, which was really fun to do. The colleges I got accepted to was UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC Santa Barbara, and UCI. Also, these are some stuff that I did in my community college. I didn't really put my high school because I was a transfer, so like these are kind of the stuff that I had to put for my application. I did the student government, so I was senator for business, senator for counseling, and I was also the legislative secretary. I was part of the Women Empowerment Club, and I was actually president. I founded the club as well. I was part of the ULink student. I don't know if anyone's familiar with ULink. It's kind of like a really interesting thing that helps you get automatic admissions to like UCI and stuff like that, which is really great. I was also a lobbyist for the student government, which I went to Congress as well to do that for 2 years. And then I was part of the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society at my school. Some work that I'm doing right now is I'm actually working with the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology. That's my current job. And I'm also trying to recruit, which you'll learn more. It's like a little bit hectic, but we'll get there. And then I was doing operations intern for Cool Air Technology. And just little thing about myself is like I love trying new foods.
Hi, everyone. My name is Barbara. I'm an international student. I was born and raised in Mombasa, Kenya, and I moved to the US about 4 years ago to start my undergrad at Berkeley. I graduated 2020, class of the pandemic, and I majored in architecture. Let me see what I can say about that. Yeah, I was a MasterCard Foundation Scholar, so that the MasterCard Foundation Scholar is kind of a leadership program / scholarship that is specifically given to students who are from Sub-Saharan Africa, and it's kind of like a full scholarship as well as kind of like a stipend, as well as it's also like a leadership program in that they train you about transformative leadership. You engage with the topic of kind of like Africa, development of Africa, and different interactions with different parts of the world. And that was something I was very active in as well. As a MasterCard Scholars Committee member, and we used to plan organizations that kind of like plan events that kind of like helped us connect with African diaspora in the Bay Area, as well as connect with Africa and connect with, just like have conversations about kind of some of the issues and challenges and experiences of being African. I was part of the Organization of African Students. I was the VP for 2 years, I think. It's been a minute. And I was also president of American Institute of Architecture Students. I've been with AIAS for about, I think, almost 4 years, because I joined when I was a freshman. I became liaison, which is kind of like an officer like I was assisting the officers. And then I joined as the VP of, I think it was publicity. Yes, and then I became president. So yeah, part of the MasterCard Scholars Committee as well. And we used to just like plan events around campus. We had like a dance party this one time at Berkeley. I don't know if any of Berkeley guys saw that, but it was really fun. Everyone joined us, so they played like African music and just like danced on a Friday. In high school, I was very much, or what I'm doing right now I'm actually working as a designer. In 2020 was kind of busy for me because I got my first job, but before that I did 2 internships. I worked with the Center for Independent Living and as a research assistant, and what they do is basically they are I think you should definitely look into them because they do some really great work with accessibility in the Bay Area. I was also part of a research that I did with Cunningham Group, and I got that research position through the National Organization of Minority Architects, which is NOMA, and I was a foundation fellow for 2020, and that was a really great experience. You get to be exposed to a bunch of Black and POC architects all around the world. These are just like some of the internships I did while I was still in school. But I guess looking back at high school, which was a while back, surprisingly, I did IB. So I'm an alumni of IB. And if you guys know IB, you know the experience. I was part of a bunch of community and service clubs, including Uhai Club. Uhai means life. So it was basically the goal of the club was to improve the standards of living of different individuals who lived in Mombasa, where I'm from. And we used to work with different orphanages around Mombasa and kind of collaborate on different kind of projects. So very random things from like deworming projects to vaccine projects to just like doing fun days for orphans around the Mombasa. I was also part of Because I'm a Girl, and we also did a lot of education for girls, teaching girls about menstrual health, about sex, about education, about various topics that are very relevant to kind of like the growth and development of young girls. And just some of the things I was part of, public speaking club, which was really fun. We just like spoke a lot. We didn't really do any big events. We just like literally just like hung out and spoke about almost anything. And then I was part of choir, and the choir was really big. We went to a bunch of competitions, as well as like won TV a couple of times. And outside of school, I'm currently applying to grad school. I just had back from most of my schools, so that's exciting. All my schools, and I got in, yay! So that's exciting news. I'm also part of a committee right now that is part of American Institute of Architects, where we're creating a task force that's being turned into a committee that is tackling some of the issues of diversity and inclusion within architecture through various events that for now, being in Utah, are beginning with education, because a lot of people aren't comfortable talking about race in design. So we're trying to start that conversation now. But yeah, that's me, yeah.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Tess. I'm a freshman at Hopkins. I'm majoring in economics and I'm minoring in computer science and East Asian studies. I was accepted into a like the direct matriculation program at Hopkins, so I'll be going to the School of Advanced International Studies after 4 years at Hopkins, and I'll be getting my master's in international studies. I'm from Maryland, and currently right now I'm involved with the Global China Connections Club, the debate team, and I'm a Woodrow Wilson Fellow. And the fellows just do like their own research project. We get a grant of about $10,000, I believe, to do research on our own, and we get faculty mentorship. So in high school, I was on the debate team. I also did research in high school, and I was in a bunch of honor societies. I interned at the office of State Senator Katie Fry Hester, and I actually still am an intern there. And I also worked on the campaign for Dr. Chao-Bu when he was campaigning in 2018 for Board of Education. Outside of school, I did Achieve Success Together, which I founded and am the current president of. Achieve Success Together is an organization where high school students tutor and instruct elementary and middle school students in a variety of subjects, ranging from your normal school subjects to things like drama, public speaking, debate, etc. I was also part of the World Trade Center Youth Diplomats, and that was a thing the World Trade Center in Baltimore ran, where high school students from the greater Baltimore area went to the World Trade Center, and we listened to speakers talking about international issues such as like food security, immigration, etc. And we did a final presentation at the end of it to summarize our learning experience. And I did piano for a long time.
Hi everyone, I'm Anna. I am currently a third year at the University of Chicago, and I'm double majoring in public policy and anthropology. I'm also from Maryland. So in college, I do basically things in the camps of education and speaking / law and policy. And so my favorite thing ever is the moot court team, which is basically mock trial, but at the appellate level. So it's constitutional law. And I came in knowing nothing about it, and now it's probably my favorite thing to do. I also teach at a local high school through the Neighborhood Schools program, and I am an intern at the University of Chicago Center for Effective Government, which is basically working to reform government institutions from the institutional level instead of just going through political systems. And then I am also a member of the Public Policy Studies Student Advisory Board for my major and a part of the Public Policy Leaders Program, which is basically a career advancement program which helps me get internships and learn more about public policy opportunities. And then in high school, I did a lot in, again, 2 different camps. One side was student government. And so I did a lot of work in student government at the school level, and then at the county level, I was in the Association of Student Councils, and I ended up being the student member on my local Board of Education. And then I also did advocacy in policy at the state level with the Maryland Youth Advisory Council, and I was on a local community foundation council. But on the other hand, I also did a little bit of work in engineering and STEM areas because I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. So at the same time as I was in policy, I also was on like my robotics team, and I did the engineering career program through my high school. And I was also in some of the technology honor societies. And I also did independent research work in both policy and in engineering, kind of choosing between both. And then through summer projects, I also was able to be a Bank of America student leader, which basically was an internship program over the summer with a local nonprofit. And then the last thing to add that I didn't mention on the last slide is that I was accepted to the Naval Academy, so I can also speak to the like applying to a military academy experience.
Hey everyone, I'm Catherine. I'm originally from Maryland. I just graduated last year with the class of 2020 from UVA, and I studied public health and economics. Also very interested in policy. Currently, I am doing my Master of Public Health with a policy concentration at UVA, and some things that I was involved in during college. So I'm really interested in music. I play violin, so I was in the orchestra here for a little bit. And then I'm also in an a cappella group. I kind of more on the econ type of side, but also related to policy, depending on what you're looking at. I was part of a group called SEED, which stands for Student Entrepreneurs for Economic Development, and that was a consulting group. I was also involved in a couple of different types of research and in a club called Global Medical Training, where we talked a lot about global health issues. And at that time I was thinking that I wanted to go to med school, and it's still something that's in my mind, but right now I'm focusing on more of the public health side. And then with respect to the kinds of things I was involved in high school, I was in student government. I started, I can't remember exactly what position I held because it was quite a while ago now, but I was on my class's board, and then kind of worked on different committees in my student government. I was also involved in my high school's environmental club and orchestra and a variety of honor societies. Outside of school, in high school, I played soccer. I was involved in a local youth orchestra, and then also tried to do more leadership type of things outside of school. So I was in an organization called the Young Women's Giving Circle. So a bunch of girls, we all met together and we basically just organized fundraising events for different charities that we had identified. I was also involved in my county's student council and my county's environmental sustainability board, where I actually created an organization, a countywide youth environmental organization. In terms of work experience, what I'm doing right now, in addition to my MPH, is I'm working with the Virginia Department of Health in the COVID response, which has been very interesting. And I'm also doing an internship with a consulting firm in DC. Some other things that I've done, a couple of these things are pre-med related, but I worked as an intern for the UVA Cancer Survivorship Clinic, and I worked as a medical scribe, and also at one point fundraised for my school.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine, for introducing yourself. So now we'll go a little bit into the questions that we have for our panelists. So the first question we have is, how are you paying for college? Barbara, if you want to get us started here.
I paid for college through the Mastercard scholarship I talked about. Unfortunately, the scholarship is specifically for Sub-Saharan African students, but I think it kind of is an insight into scholarships of a similar nature that specifically pay for, let's say if you are a Japanese student, you could actually get maybe like scholarships specifically for Japanese students, or similar kind of nation-linked scholarships that you should definitely watch out for. World Bank is a good source of those scholarships. So if you look at World Bank scholarships, that's one way to kind of fund your way through college at different levels. And that's how I paid for scholarship, my education, yeah.
Way I'm paying currently and have paid for college is through FAFSA. So that's like financial aid. I started using it, I think, in my college, in my community college, and now it continued to Berkeley. So the thing about it is that it did cover a lot of majority because my family is low income, but I still had to take out about $5,000 of like loan. Reason being is because I wanted to like do Martinez Commons, which was a little bit more pricey than like most of residential hall areas. So from there, that's how like kind of I paid. So right now I am in a loan for like 5,000, but it's not as bad if you think about it. Once you see that a lot of individuals, that's like a pretty okay number to be at for a university. So that's how I went through financial aid. And there's so many resources. So if you need any resources on how to use FAFSA, I can go ahead and shoot that in an email.
Awesome, sweet. Thank you both for your answers. That was super helpful. The next question that we have is about AP and IB classes. So someone asked, which AP IB classes did you take, and how can you use these classes to show colleges what you're interested in and that you challenged yourself? So Anna, if you want to take this one first.
Yeah, so I was trying to remember, and basically the thing to start off with, like the AP classes that I took were the majority of the ones that I could take. So like there was an option for AP English instead of honors English. And so I took that when I could. And then I also took the math AP classes that were there. And then I also did the history classes that were AP. But I think the thing that was special was I kind of had the choice. Should I take AP Bio or should I take the engineering program that I was interested in at the school that I had friends in? And I ended up choosing the engineering program because I decided that sure, one's AP, but the other one is still a really good way to show that like maybe I want to go into engineering after high school. And the answer was no, but it was a great opportunity to like actually try it in high school. And it wasn't a detriment to me that I didn't take one more AP class because I was doing a class that also relates to something I might want to go into.
For me, a lot of my APs I took in the junior and senior year of high school, because the way I set it, like the way I went through high school is basically like in junior, senior year, I had no other classes to take besides APs at that point. So I kind of accidentally forced myself into taking APs. But it was not a terrible experience. I did figure out that I didn't really like science or math and that I liked economics more through my AP classes. And that kind of really helped guide me into deciding to major in economics. So I think take as many AP classes as you can handle. And that's a really good way of discovering what your passions actually are.
Yeah, awesome answers. Definitely. I think AP and IB classes are a great way to show colleges what you're interested in and showing that you can succeed at those higher level classes, which would be more similar to what kind of like introductory courses that you would be getting at the college level. So the next question that we have is, how did you choose your major? Did you know what you wanted to major in during high school? Catherine, if you wanted to start that off.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was determined that I was going to become a doctor. So I didn't know what that looked like. I assumed that meant that I had to major in biology. So when I initially applied for college, I did put down biology as my major of interest. At least at UVA, and my impression is that this is probably true for other schools. Well, maybe it's not true for every school, so maybe look into this. But at UVA, me saying that I was interested in biology didn't mean that I was absolutely going to do that as soon as I got there. So I started with biology, and then I took a bunch of classes that I thought might be interesting. And really kind of how I figured out what I wanted to major in was my friend said, "Oh my gosh, I took this really interesting public health class. You should take it." So I took it and I really enjoyed it. And I realized that there was this field that I didn't know existed before that basically brought together a whole bunch of my interests. So health was obviously an interest of mine, but also pulling in policy and like environmental issues and things like that. Ultimately, what I would urge you to do is just kind of think of, I mean, this is hard to do, but try to balance, when you're deciding what you want to major in, really think about what you're passionate about. That is a really important piece. Like I said, I'm still considering medical school, but one thing that I realized and kind of in exploring this field of public health is that if I went to medical school, I had this idea that was my life goal. But, then I would be 30 as a doctor and my life goal is achieved. Then, what comes after that? So that doesn't mean don't become a doctor, don't become a lawyer or something like that, but really think about what matters to you as a person and what you're passionate about. And think about how you want to live your life, both academically and in terms of work, but also about how you want to live your life.
Sweet, awesome. Thank you for that. And we're going to move on to a question for Nina. So someone asked, how did you create a college list and how did you choose schools to apply to?
Yeah, of course. So while creating a college list, like everyone else has mentioned, I really considered what I wanted to study and which schools offered the best for the majors I wanted to focus on. So when I first was applying to schools, I was very interested in studying chemistry and biology. I looked into universities that were around the area that had focuses in chemistry and biology. I applied to a lot of the UCs because they have great programs, but also because I knew that I wanted to stay in the state of California, just because I couldn't imagine myself going elsewhere. So I applied to those schools. I also looked into other schools. I wanted to just try applying because, you only get to apply in colleges maybe once or twice in your life, and I didn't want to give up that experience. So I compiled a list of like my dream schools and a bunch of other schools I wanted to shoot my shot at, and created that list. Um, it was primarily just based on the ranking of the programs and what classes they offered.
Thanks, Nina. That's a good answer for creating your college list. Definitely for high school juniors or people that are going to transfer schools this upcoming application cycle. It's about time that you start thinking and researching colleges that you may want to apply to and start creating your college list. So definitely something to start think about. So the next question is from an international student, and they wanted to know, did you apply to any of your home country's universities? What tests did you have to take in order to apply? So probably like the SAT and the ACT, and what kinds of grades did you get in high school that allowed you to go to college in the United States? Or Barbara, you also got accepted to a university in Canada.
So I went to an international school in Kenya. So the way the Kenyan process works is that you don't really apply to college in Kenya. You list the schools you want to go to, but they place you in those schools based on your grades. So it's kind of, it's less free, it's less of a fun, oh, let me explore my college options. But it's also, so because I went to international schools, I didn't go through the process of being placed into those schools, and I didn't apply to those schools as well, because I couldn't qualify for financial aid if I didn't go through the Kenyan high schools. So I knew I had to apply to schools abroad, and I knew I had to get a full scholarship. So I worked really hard on studying for my SATs, and I don't think I didn't get like exceptionally high SAT scores. I think I got like something around 1800 out of 2400. But I think that combined with my application was enough to get me into a lot of the schools I applied to. I forgot the list of schools I applied to. The reason you're saying 2 schools is because I applied to 14 schools. I don't know which ones I got accepted to, because after Berkeley, I was like, I don't care, I'm coming to Berkeley. And I never like followed up on my Common Apps. So yeah, like SATs is the test that I sat for. And for the SATs, if you're curious about where to take them, you just look up the test centers online, and they because they're all registered internationally, you can see where the closest test to you is. Luckily, because I was in international school, the closest test center was exactly where I was. So my school was a test center, and it was part of the list of test centers. Like if you look online, it was part of that list. So it was very easy for me to apply for that. Let me look at what else that I need to, yeah, like I took SATs, and I didn't sit for the ACT because I knew that most of my schools accepted the SATs. So I was like, I'm not gonna pay the extra money just to take basically the same test. And I think for international students, you also have to take the English test, English proficiency test. Because I went to international school again, I didn't have to do that, thankfully, because my international school's language of, I guess, like the teaching language was English. But for that test, luckily enough, I didn't have to take it. So I can't really advise on that. But that's another test you have to take if you're coming from a non kind of English or international institution. Basically, any non-American / non-Canadian or non-European school, you would have to take the ILOETS. I cannot advise you on the English proficiency test, but that's the one you have to take. But yeah, I didn't apply to any schools in Kenya. So I just applied to Canadian schools, and I applied to a bunch of American schools.
So moving on to our next question, we actually have a question about transfer students. And a lot of times transfer students don't, get the same attention as, a lot of people like coming into college. So this is a great question to have. So any advice for community college, what to get involved in, et cetera, that will help my chances of transferring? So Yadi.
Yeah, of course. Whoever chose that question, amazing. I feel like I get those a lot as a mentor for transfer students. I think that I want to be very straightforward and very open with everyone. I think that different transfer students have such different perspectives and challenges depending on for example, some people need to have to work a lot to support their families during their community college. So that means that they can't spend so much time in school. So the way I work that is I do want to recognize that I was very privileged to the extent of I only had to work during Saturdays and Sundays. So what I did to kind of help me get involved is I involved myself so much inside of the school. I didn't have a car, so I wasn't privileged enough to drive somewhere and do research. I wasn't privileged enough to be able to go somewhere and do all these activities community based because I didn't have that accessibility. But what I did is I did a lot of stuff within my community college. I tried to join as many programs as first. I joined so many that was what I was passionate about, whether it was women empowerment or honor societies. I didn't stay in honor societies, but I heard they're amazing. So I did that by joining a lot of clubs and into the student government. And then once I found what I actually liked, I just told my other groups, you know what, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to continue coming to these meetings. And you have the right to be able to tell them no person should be able to be no, you stayed, you're committed. It's no, I need to balance myself out on what I like to do. And then from there, I just committed myself a lot to two specific ones, which was the student government and a club. And then from there, if you see like the government helped me do a lot of things with whether it was going to like Congress or lobbying or being part of like a lot of committees. And then once you stay in that, you commit a lot to like at least 2 or 3, balance yourself out a lot. 3, that's when you decide like, okay, I'm gonna do as much as I can with these ones I have in school. 1, it helped me to stay in school and do my work there. 2, it helped me to be able to put that in my application. And then 3, it helped me build a community. And I think that that's like one of the biggest ones. Sometimes a lot of transfer students don't continue to be in community college because they forget to find a community. And honestly, I feel like the biggest thing you have to do is like stay and just join as many clubs and then narrow it down to what you like. I hope that kind of answers straightforward. If you have any more questions, honestly, just contact me directly. Hopefully they'll shoot out our contact information.
Yeah, definitely some great advice, especially because the transfer process is different than if students are going from high school directly to college. So our next question is about grad school. So we're going through all of the levels of higher education right now. So the question is, what should you be doing during undergrad in order to prepare for applying to grad school? Tess, if you wanted to start this off.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, I was accepted into the direct matriculation program, which I'm not sure a lot of schools have, but Hopkins has 2 of them for the School of Public Health and the School of Advanced International Studies. And for this, you have to apply to a separate essay when you're applying as a freshman going into college, like when you're applying for college. And the basic requirements are keep up your grades. You have to take a few courses like econ, political science, etc. I don't think I'm super representative of what it takes to get into a master's program, but this is just one potential path, especially if you don't want to go through the trouble of taking the GRE.
Yeah, I can add a little bit more because I didn't do I did a different process, I guess, because I applied to different grad schools that I did not attend. I applied to Berkeley as well, but I didn't basically go through the transition process. The main things that grad schools, I applied to a Master's of Architecture. So the main things that grad schools are looking for, I think Tess has mentioned, is your grades, your essays, your recommendation letters are also very important. And this is just like in general. Every program that you apply for has a different process. And that's something to be aware of. And the first thing I would do in undergrad is look into what you want to do your master's in and see what exactly are they like waiting to see from you. Are they trying to see your portfolio, as in most design masters, or are they trying to see your research? Are they trying to, what are you trying to study, and how is your, basically your portfolio, if I use that word in a different context, how is that going to build into your participation into the master's program? So I personally, early on, reached out to my professors because I knew how important it was to have really good recommendation letters. And I told them, basically, I think I was planning on applying last year, but I didn't end up applying in my senior year. I ended up applying after my senior year. So I reached out to my professors in my junior year and I told them, I'm actually going to apply to grad school next year. So can you actually write my recommendation letters? And I told them very early on, so they had me in mind when going into the grad application process. So you ask them early enough because so many people are going to ask them, not just you. All students who are planning on applying to grad school will probably ask your professors, especially if you're in a small major like I was in. And then you want to kind of like work, obviously keep your grades up, but those are the things that kind of like strengthened my portfolio, I think, was just like, I had some very good recommendation letters. And yeah, like if you're in architecture, work on your portfolio, prepare that for when you're applying to grad school. Because and remember that every project you're doing right now is going to go into your portfolio. So make sure you put as much effort into your portfolio like right now, because when you're applying to grad school, you don't really have time to go back. Maybe you do, I don't know. I didn't have time to go back and perfect my portfolio. So it was just a matter of making sure that the work I was doing, whether it's you're doing research or you're doing your classes, that is going to go into your application, make sure it's strong now for then, prepare for the future, basically. But other than that, just like craft your story, basically. Try and see what's your interest, where your interests lie, and try and make sure you know how to communicate what your interests are. If your interests are in somehow in international development, basically make sure that your application is kind of crafted to communicate what you want to do in international development. My interest was in kind of like somehow research or design research in Africa. So the way I talked about myself was in the lens of, I'm going to contribute this perspective, or I'm going to investigate this kind of perspective in grad school. And that's how the work I'm doing is showing that I'm doing that, and etc. Basically something like that. But it's a very intense process, and the earlier you're prepared and the more aware you are knowledgeable of the process, the easier it is for you to do so, you know.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to add a little bit to this conversation because I'm doing a 4+1 program, so that's a completely different route as well. Just wanted to let you know that those kinds of programs exist. So if you're not sure right now about grad school, and you could look into those direct matriculation programs, or you could apply to different schools. But another option is, like for me, I graduated from UVA, but I started taking MPH classes during my 4th year, and then continued for this one additional year. With that, I didn't have to take the GRE, but I just wanted to reiterate what Barbara said about the importance of recommendation letters. Those are really important. And one thing that I failed to do during like my first 3 years of college was to build relationships with my professors and with people I was working with. I was so focused on the work itself that I didn't spend a lot of time getting to know the people that I was doing work with. So I would really encourage you to focus on those relationships as well. And even if it doesn't have to be for recommendation letters, although that'll help when that time comes, but just to, learn more about your interests. Your professors have a lot of experience and can give you a really good idea of what a certain field looks like. So I urge you to go to office hours, even if you don't have questions about the material. That's something I didn't do and I started doing later. And I got to have really cool conversations with my professors about my interest.
Awesome. Thank you, Catherine, for that. And so we are going to move to actually a couple questions that came in because we really want to get your questions answered. And so someone asked, how does one get a research or job internship at in high school? And if you wanted to talk about that, or in university as well, either of those.
Yeah, and I think my answer kind of goes for both. I've gotten internships in a lot of different ways, and I've tried a lot of different routes. And I would say the most effective one, both in high school and in college, has been when I find like the thing that I am most excited about. So for example, in college, that was the Center for Effective Government. And in high school, it was my local representative in the Maryland House of Delegates. And I send them an email or I call them and I literally just say, hi, I'm Anna. I'm a 2nd year in the college majoring in public policy. And I think that your work is really interesting. And in high school, I said, and I am okay with working volunteer. And in college, I said, I can get funding through my university, which is true. And so basically it was like, look, there's a free work, someone who is ready and willing to work for you without without you having to pay them. And clearly I was interested in the topic. And in both of those cases, they were absolutely willing to take me on because of the demonstrated interest. And so that's kind of like out of applying through programs and out of going through other avenues that are kind of more structured. Those are really good for getting to places, but this is also a way that I've found is like really, really effective in getting to where you want to be.
Definitely. That is some good advice because nothing is better than the cold call or the cold email. So many of my peers in high school and college have gotten research and other internship opportunities just by literally finding someone on the internet and then emailing like a professor at a college or someone that you know at a company, and then they have a cool researcher internship position. So that is definitely very useful. So our next question is about what were your passion projects in high school or in college right now? And so I guess, Barbara, if you wanted to start off.
Some of the things that I was really passionate about was, first of all, kind of education. and especially working with children. And I really value the process. I think it's very important to think about what exactly are we teaching our children growing up, and how can we start molding them to kind of be their best selves in like simpler terms. And I was also very passionate about basically girls, not women, but girls, now women, always women, always girls. And I think it's very important for me to fight for kind of like my passions and my trying to make sure that we all have equal rights. And it's especially for me, it was especially obvious as a kind of like growing up in Kenya. I was very exposed to a lot of inequality, and I was very passionate about kind of trying to break down that. I did that through a couple of different ways. My first internship like ever was for this project called Educating Girls in Science. And it was kind of this cool project where you're introducing girls to the idea that leadership and kind of like it's ingrown in some ways, and you have an impact in your own society. So we did that through introducing them, taking them through like a project. They basically went out into their communities, saw a problem, and we helped them create a solution for it through science. So it was kind of about building STEM and building community, encouraging girls to be part of that process. I also did that through my own kind of like personal research. I don't know if you've done IB, you know that there's something called a personal project. Was it called a personal project? I think it's called a personal project, right? Yeah.
And you're right.
And my personal project was basically trying to do research on why girls in high schools didn't take physics in the same numbers as men did, as boys did in high school. So I went in and I collected some data and found that literally in comparison, you have a class of like 50 boys doing physics and you have like 7 girls doing physics. And I did research investigating why that is, a couple of questionnaires, trying to understand the mindset. And the mindset was, as you can imagine, it was very societally like biased, because girls were kind of like told this mentality that girls shouldn't be doing sciences in some ways, and girls aren't meant for STEM. So like it was about understanding where that mentality came from. And that was my research in my personal project. And I'm continuing to fight for that in different ways. And I'm always just going to be very passionate about women, children, and development, and kind of like digging into curriculums and understanding how education can be a very big proponent for change as a result of like how education can literally transform communities. So I'm passionate to see how that can be a thing.
So my passion project was Achieve Success Together. Founded that in my freshman year of high school, and I'm still working on that. It started out mostly as a small class thing for writing, and then eventually we moved into instructing classes, still small classes, for farm and ESOL students. So farm is like the designation that my county made for students who are low income. So we partnered with the school system, and we got a grant from the county government to hold small classes for these students after school, and we did that until COVID hit. And then after COVID hit, we switched to doing online tutoring. That was 101, and that's what we've been doing since then. And it's been a nice project for me to work on outside of school, and it's really been a wonderful experience doing that. Yeah.
So I actually also have a small passion project on the side. So recently I took a public health class that allowed me to focus more on clean water, on providing clean water to different people throughout the world. Specifically, one group I focused on in my class was people in rural parts of America, and I found that really fascinating. So my friends and I are actually working on developing an app that encourages people to focus on their studies and their tasks at hand. So the longer you focus on your task, the more water you can potentially donate to various organizations. We're working on securing funding, and we're hoping that we'll be able to release the app sometime next fall. So it's very exciting, and we hope it was just something that was inspired by a class, and a bunch of friends just got together and wanted to do something on the side.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. And kind of to wrap up our speaker series today, we did want to ask all of you kind of why you chose the college that you ended up going to. What stuck with you, during the process of touring that college or finding out more about it? Tell us your story.
I got into 4 UCs, and to be extremely honest, I was between UCLA and UC Berkeley, and from a Latinx household, you don't really like perspective. You don't really leave your family. I'm not sure if anyone's Latinx here, but it was a little bit hard because I'm in Southern California, and like Berkeley's all the way like 8 hours away. So that was kind of a barrier that I wasn't really aiming for Berkeley. But then what I did is I actually got a list of my major and then the classes that my majors were offering. And I felt like Berkeley was just offering more of that like diversity of all these classes for my global studies major, classes that I wanted to learn more, like I was really passionate about. And then from there I was like, no, like I need to go to this school. A big thing is to go on campus, like going to campus and feeling that you are meant to be there also helps a lot.
I was basically down to University of Maryland and Hopkins when I was making my decision, and I think what really pulled me to Hopkins was the fact that I got the Woodrow Wilson Fellowship and I got the DERP Matriculation Program, because those two were things that I would not have been offered at Maryland. Just the opportunity for research and the guaranteed admission into graduate school really pulled me into Hopkins.
A couple of things made me kind of like focus on Berkeley. One of them is sustainable design, and that's a very strong aspect of the Berkeley College of Environmental Design, and also just exposure to different other departments within architecture. So I think having urban design, sustainable design, and like landscape all in one building in that very kind of enriching environment, I was very pulled towards that. And also the Mastercard Foundation Scholar was a big thing. The money, that's it for sure. But also the community of kind of like this give back perspective of community of scholars who want to change and give back to the continent, and kind of like all of them doing amazing different development projects in Kenya or in other parts of the world. That was a big network that I wanted to join. And I could only do that if I joined the Mastercard Foundation Scholars at Berkeley. So that was definitely my biggest pull.
Great. So for me, I was between UVA and University of Maryland Engineering School. I'm sorry if you hear an ambulance behind me. I live near the hospital. It's passing by now. So really, I was trying to figure out what did I want to do? Did I want to do engineering or not? So that was kind of hard because I had no idea. But I think one of the big things that pulled me to UVA was just I felt so welcomed when I was at the Admitted Students Day, and it's just really beautiful at UVA. It was also a lot more sunny on that day than my other Admitted Students Days, which maybe played a role. But another factor, of course, is money, because college can be really expensive, and I didn't think I was going to end up being able to go to UVA because it was so expensive. But some things shifted there to make that possible. With working with the financial aid office. So don't be afraid to call the financial aid office if you have concern.
I think the main reason why I chose UChicago was because it seemed like the best option for me to still not know what I want to do. So the Naval Academy would be okay. Well, you're going to go into the Navy and probably do some version of engineering, but I kind of want to figure out what area of policy I'm really interested in. And I also appreciated about UChicago that like they have a reputation for just really, really being interested in academics and also being cool with the fact that that's just being a nerd. And so I think like kind of the fact that I could just do whatever I wanted and also really enjoy doing whatever I wanted, put together with the fact that it's really, really gorgeous, kind of brought everything together into me choosing UChicago.
So I actually didn't really think too much about where I was going to go. Berkeley was the school that offered me the scholarships I needed to attend school without taking out too many loans, and I also kind of just handed the choice off to my parents. I think one of my biggest regrets is actually just handing it off to my parents. I definitely wish I put more time and consideration into um, determining which school I would spend the next 4 years of my life at, but I don't have too many regrets about it. I still love Berkeley and I'm proud to be a bear.
We'll move into kind of the end of our speaker series today. So first of all, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone for asking questions. Also, thank you to all of our speakers. I learned a lot about all of you, and I'm sure everyone listening did. So thank you so much for sharing your stories. And just kind of to top it off, I wanted to let everyone know that here at Study Hall College Consulting, not only do we run panels like this and offer different services for getting your college apps ready to go, but we also have a couple other things, one of which is an advice blog that we post on pretty frequently. And so our advice blog can talk about anything under the moon. Some of the most recent ones that we posted are, what to do when you're waitlisted at a college, what are the next steps, building healthy study habits, planning your college schedule, everything that you really need to know from high school, to getting to college, through college. We write about that pretty frequently, so feel free to check that out. And you can also submit blog topics for us to talk about. So if you have a question, you really want to hear about it from us, submit to that form that you see at the bottom right, and we can get that answered for you. And then other than that, we also do have a newsletter and social media. So feel free to connect with us. We'd love to help you out in any way possible. You can sign up for our newsletter. You can go to our website actually and see kind of all of this in one place, at shcollegeconsulting.com. And so that's a really great place to get all of the frequent updates, whether it's recent college news, things like that. But whatever social media platform you have, definitely connect with us. We'd love to hear from you about how this went, about any questions that you have about really anything college related. All right, and thank you all once again for attending. I did send out this in the chat. If you saw that down below, you can go to this form to actually receive 10% off of your next purchase with Study Hall College Consulting. So feel free to fill out that form, and thank you everyone for sticking around for the entire speaker series. And thank you once again to our speakers as well. All right. So that is all. So I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and thank you once again for joining us.